Hi there and welcome to Good Enough Scenery and welcome to my Mountainous modular board. Now this board has been scratch built from very simple and easy to obtain materials such as MDF, XPS foam, paint, flock, resin, sprues, string, pins, nothing complicated. And this is what it's ended up like. This is a 6 foot by 4 foot board, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make every single detail. Even things like this mine entrance here. But first of all, I'm going to show you the planning process, what I went through in order to make this a fully modular board. And what do I mean by that? I mean that every tile can be next to every other tile. Literally, every corner tile can go next to every other corner tile. Every straight piece can go next to every corner tile. I don't need to go on. You get the point. It is modular. It has countless variations. So I'm going to be taking you through the planning process, making the most basic tiles, how to turn the XPS foam so it actually looks more like a cliff, how to add more details like this waterfall, the corner pieces. I'm going to show you how I made the lake, which you'll be seeing in just a second, and all of the thoughts that went into each different piece that I made. So let's get into it, starting with the planning process, which is very important so that you understand how this all came about. A mountain board, a mountainous board, which I'm really hoping is going to be truly epic. So I've got 24 tiles here. I may use 24 at any given one time, but I just want to have a lot of variety within the 16 that I normally might use. So let me explain what this is about. I'll move this to one side. And so these white areas here, this is going to be base level. So this is literally going to be, so one of these will just be one of these, but flocked, maybe with some stones and rocks and things on it to make it more interesting, obviously, but that's kind of like open ground. The next layer up is this kind of bluey one here, and that will be something that is that high. Next one is this beige one, and that will be that high, followed by the kind of dark area. I forgot which pen I used here, happens, but I know what's going on, and that will be here. So each one is going to be pretty tall, but we're going to have a huge amount of variety in the in what we can create, because the idea here is I'm going to cut each level at the same angle, so that any tile and at the same point along, so any tile can join up with any other tile. So hopefully I'm going to show you a completely different board setup. So that is just one. Okay, this is what one that's set up. But let's make a zero plan to this. Let's just put together a 4x4 board. Okay, so I'm just going to take them as they come and see what happens. So I've got some open ground there. So this is kind of an internal corner. So that could be like that. Oh, another bit of open ground. Be very open, this one. There we go. We got there in the end. So what we've ended up with, what looks like, you've got probably 3-4 hills here with this some open space. So it's like a ravine there. So this would be open ground, some rocks around, but for a crossing the board scenario, this would be fascinating because you've got some open ground there and then a really thin bit there, so you have to climb up onto the rocks. So that's just one option. The first setup we had. I don't want all of them. Right, so what would I actually choose here? I have to choose that, and then, you know, this could be open ground. It could be, we could have a hill there. Right, let's remove. That's what we'll do. I'm going to take out. And then this one will just be. So, again, completely different setup, completely different thing in terms of how it works out. I think ultimately I'm just happy, I'm pretty happy about plans. And let's see how the rest of them could go. If we made it a 5x4, what do we end up with? So we have that and that. straight and a corner. So need another straight, so put that in there like that. And then see, the fact that they can all join up with all the other ones means that you can just put them out. So I think it works in theory. Whether it works in practice, whether these are going to look good, they all join up with each other, or they're going to look too samey. But the thing is, it's just the angle they're joining at that's going to be the same. After that point there, anything can happen between there and there. As long as they are at the same angle, what happens in between there and there doesn't matter. So some of them are going to be more sheer, some of them are going to be a lot more friendly to get up. Yeah, I think it's going to work. So yeah, let's do one more design, but just done quickly. I think ultimately what this is telling me is that I've got enough of the right pieces to make some very different things. So right, that is the planning stage. Let's see if it works in reality in the future videos. But yeah, that's the mounting board. This will be the bottom height. First layer, second layer, top layer, and then some big scatter rocks as well. Let's see if it works. How I made these 4 most basic tiles for my new modular mountain board. These are just literally just based on MDF, but I really, some of them, my most favouriteest tiles that I've ever made. Nice and simple, few things required, but yeah, I absolutely love them, so let me show you how I made them. So this starts off with a 2 foot by 1 foot MDF board. I haven't been able to find them in 1 foot squares, and I simply cut these in half. And the way that I do this safely and as quickly as possible is to simply mark out halfway and then lightly go over this over and over again until I've got a nice big groove, and then I can work at it a little bit more aggressively with my hands safely out of the way, and then I've got 2 things exactly the same size ready for the next stage. Now, making 4 completely plain tiles as open terrain for this board. First I'm going to paint them. Now I'm painting possibly in a slightly different way to how I might paint other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly put some black down and take some white, probably more white than black. Whoa! Has it been a while, mate? Oh, I'm such a child. Alright, calm down. Now the idea here is not to completely soak the paint into this wood, because this wood can bend. Now normally what you would do is you paint one side of it, and then the other side of it you can paint as well, and that stops it bending or warping. But the other side of this is white like that, and so rather than kind of brushing it in, what I'm going to do is I am going to be just like stippling it. Now this is going to get kind of covered with stones and flock and things anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect in it. I think I've put too much black down, but now they've got good coverage going on. I'm just going to try and even out some of these brush strokes. What I'm going to do is take another board and just press it down for a second and lift it off, just to really remove any really heavy amounts of paint, like that. And now we'll just leave these to dry. You join me in a war zone of craft. So moving on to what we're going to do next with these, the paint on these is dry, and it's kind of like I say, it's just kind of a base layer. Boards haven't warped, I don't think, which is good news, but we want to make them a bit more, a lot more interesting, whilst still giving them a zone where. So what I've got is all of these offcuts from all the other pieces that I've been making for this project, and all I'm going to do with them is I'm going to roll them with some aluminium foil, but essentially just get some rocky looking stuff just to make these, you know, they're going to have some flocky type bits on them, but I want to make them a bit more interesting first. So just keep all the bits that you off-cut from other pieces, and they can all just be turned into rock piles. And then you'll have larger ones like this, which they don't look particularly natural. So yeah, so for the larger ones, you may want to just make them a bit more believable, and then doing the same thing again. So I've made a whole bunch of these little scatter, well not scatter rocks, but a whole bunch of these rocks in different sizes and shapes, and now it's a case of just gluing them down. So for this I just have a glue gun. I have a glue gun and no plan. My only thing I know that's going to happen is that I'm going to concentrate them off centre. So that means, for instance, if I put that and a whole bunch of rocks around that, then when it goes down, that orientation will play differently to that orientation, play differently to that orientation. So you can have some variety. So I'm going to go for, start with this big one here, apply some glue to the bottom, and I'm just going to, I have no plan whatsoever. The only plan that I'm going to have some sort of puddles or gathered water in places, so that's the only thing I'm going to really try and make happen. That's the first piece, something along the lines of that. Like that. So I'm going to do similar randomness or emptiness with other ones. So now we're going to, I don't know if it's flock these, but we're going to put some stuff down on them. So this is super fast, strong PVA. So this is what I'm going to use for kind of the bigger stones. So I have the kind of bigger stones around these, what I'll call massive stones. And the reason I'm not doing all of it with this glue is much more expensive than the PVA glue. So use this when you really need something to be held very strongly. And this is what we're going to be putting down on it. So it's going to do this by hand. Just sprinkle through that, knowing they're not all going to stay in place, but some of them will. I think putting the small rocks down adds to the authenticity of the larger rocks, so they actually start to feel like they could be rocks rather than foam. Fully expecting, I'd say, at least half of these to just come off later on, but got to give them a chance. Now we've got some regular PVA. I'm going to go over all of the rest of it, so when you come back, all of this will be covered in PVA. So they're now smothered in PVA, and there's two things I'm going to be putting down. So there's this, which is very dark sand, and this, which is actually flocks. This is very much just going to be a sprinkling process, really. These much smaller stones. Going to get a good coverage on all of this, but not going too overboard because we want to have some space for the other one as well. But essentially we want some variety going on. It's another one of those situations where you're really trying not to think too much, you're just doing it. Now, before I put this other one down, I'm just going to do something else. Take some matte scenic spray. Essentially I'm soaking the whole board in this, I guess, but really concentrating on these bigger areas. And then once again, I'm going to be sprinkling this. So happy to leave patches because we've done an undercoat on the board, so there'll be some things where the colour of the board will be showing through, and if we don't like what that looks like, we can cover it over again. We will leave that to dry for quite a while and then see how much of this stuff comes off. Hopefully not all. So the one thing that's happened since you last saw these is some time has passed, obviously. No, I tipped a small amount of glue just literally over the top because I was really liking how it was looking. I wanted to have as few stones possible fall off. Lots are still going to fall off, I think, because that's just what happens. But I thought you'd like to see the moment. Pretty amazing, really. Yeah, I mean, that's literally how it's going to look, so that is exactly the sort of thing I was going for. That's again pretty good, and the kind of the test here is going to be how good do two tiles which weren't flocked next to each other look when they're next to each other. I think that the answer is they look pretty good. And we've got this one you didn't really see, I don't think, on camera, but there's some random piles of rocks, and when I sprayed the isopropyl alcohol on top, it is dissipated, which actually formed these kind of different colour things going on, which I haven't decided if I like or not yet, so I'm just leaving as they are. But yeah, I'm really happy with how they're looking. This is how the boards are looking. Now I'm going to add some water / puddles. I'm using epoxy resin for this. And yes, I should be wearing gloves, but here I am. Resin really loves to get stuck to the sides, so it really loves it. It's like its favourite thing to do. This one, hopefully they'll be all dripped out. So, okay, this resin's mixed up now. I've had a bit of a play earlier with this one, and I use UV resin for this, but it's that really quick to use. I like how it's ended up looking. So what I'm going to do is, it's not really going to be a resin board. I'm not putting any dams up. So this could be disastrous, but I need to not overdo it with how much I'm putting down. Build it up slowly. I think I can afford to be a little bit more daring than I'm being right now. The thing is, where it is self-leveling, it is actually going to naturally run where water would run. So if there are any high or low spots, it's going to run away from the high and go towards the low. That's kind of spreading out nicely. It's going to let it naturally spread out and see what it looks like. And I mean, there's quite a lot here, but it's got quite a lot of space to spread out into. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm going to finish this off by putting a bit of scatter flocking stuff down. You'll see what I'm doing. So, puddles have turned out lovely, really, really happy with them. the rocks. What I'm going to do with them, I'm going to get a bit of glue on my brush here, and then choose the side to the rocks. So I'm going to go with this one here. And first up, I'm going to answer the door. And that means I can finally get on with the rest of the board. Right, so I'm going to put on some of this, which is light green coarse grass, which is not like other flock that sprinkles easily. This kind of clumps together to a degree, and I tend to use it for moss. So I think that this is going to work really nice, just to break up the colour a bit. And I'm yet to work out the best way of applying it, so I tend to just put a bit of glue down and then squidge it on like that. But it sticks to you. It's weird. I don't know what it is, but like that bit will not. Would rather. Right. Well, we will do that. But I wasn't planning on doing. Got a bunch of glue in there, handful of this, and I'm just going to mix it up. And hopefully I can apply it exactly where I want to now. So let's try some. And the fact that there's glue there already is not ideal, but very much hope this darkens, and if it doesn't, then I'll have to put a bit of paint over the top. But if anyone can give me some tips in the comments on how to apply this stuff better, then let me know. Hoping that dries darker, but I've applied it to like the northern edge, let's say, of all of these rocks here. So I'm going to do that across the rest of these as well. So this is how they are looking. One thing I've done, which I didn't mention in the previous part, so when the brush has had not much left on it, I've just gone lightly over the top of the rock just to put some green on it. Two more things that we are going to add. Matte Scenic spray, and I'm just going to spray this, aiming for the lighter areas, and just to break up the grey a little bit. Got some rough path strips down now, so this is a very pale green. I'm going to hardly be adding anything, so avoiding the puddles, a little bit of green down in places, a few patches which show where a bit of life might be forming. There is water around. If there's water around, there will be stuff growing. Cool, that's all, just a few pinches of that, and then just to hold it down a bit. And I've got these tufts, which annoyingly are not self-adhesive. It's not going to make a difference, so yeah, I'm going to put some more of them down. So slightly lighter than I want it to be, but other than that I'm happy with it. So I'm taking some speed paint. It's one that I never ever use, which is literally a drip of water in there, and I'm not really trying to paint this exactly. It's what I'm doing is overloading my brush and then just letting it drip. Here, for example, I really like how it's coming together, so yeah. So there's some more work on that, and I think they're going to be finished. And here we have the completed tiles. I don't think I could be much more happy. I mean, I'm calling them like the basic tiles, but honestly, I think they're beautiful. They're some of them. How to make straight pieces. Now, all of these can be considered straight pieces because they go straight from there to there. What happens between there and there? It's a mystery. Well, it's not. You can see it. But so a bunch of examples though. This one has got steps going up to the top. This one's got a big open space with some pillars. This has got a big slant up to it when there might be huge amounts of rockfall. This is a more stepped type thing, and this one is a big old overhang. So I'm going to be showing you how I've made some of these, go into some detail about the thought process behind some of it. Before another video will show you exactly how I'm going to be decorating them, but yeah, let's get into how I make the straight tiles. So I've got my 20mm board here and start forming the lower levels. So I've got a mark up here 30 and there 30 as well. Not very interesting, but I'll show you how I do it. To start with, I'm just going to very gently just mark where it is and just begin to apply a bit more depth. And once you've got it nice and clear, then I move down to a smaller ruler. Nice sharp blade goes through this really easily. And that gives you a pretty decent straight edge. There we go. Let's go from there. And this is going to be the first layer. These are roughly 30 by 30, but that's not going to be the actual size. So they're actually going to be, this bottom layer is going to be 26 centimetres. So that's from here to here. So I've got a mark on the inside here. I'm actually going to be cutting this backwards because I've got this wire, I don't know if it's coming up on camera or not, it's rather steep angles because I want this to be quite the angle. It's not going to be like that all the way, but the ends are going to join at this angle. All I need to do is get the wire through at the correct point here, and then from there do what I want in terms of making it a steeper angle or a flat angle. So let's make this really quite steep. Now I've got a mark here at the other end, just about there. Now we have like a bottom layer type piece but that's how I'm doing the very basic cut on these to begin with. So onto the next layer up. Again, I'm using 20mm foam, and this is rather than 26, this is going to be 20, so I've got a mark here at 20. I've changed the angle of the wire here, so it's going to go through. And also what's great is this one we cut off will match up exactly as well, so these pieces that we're cutting off should be very useful. So this is the next layer up. A board, our bottom layer, of our next layer there, and we can make adjustments. So I could say, oh, that's not good, there's an overhang there, or I might say that's exactly what I want some overhang there. That's the beginnings of what a straight tile will look like. Next up will be the top layer, which will be much bigger. For the top layer, I'm using 50mm foam. Unfortunately, I didn't have any pre-prepared, so I have to cut this down. So we want this to be 30 here. So this, Amazon Basics, got this one, a smaller version, 20 spare blades for £10. So to begin with, I'm more or less scoring the line. I'm not really putting any. And then next time, a bit more. So you've done a couple, it doesn't need to be out that far. So, in line and parallel to the edge of the table. Do a nice snap like that. And that snaps pretty much straight. This one, I'm actually going to have the join be vertical, but I'm going to stay in vertical for the first half of it. So, and this is going to be 15 centimetres long. So with some of them, I'm going to be doing some slightly crazier stuff than I'm doing on this one. I'll show you later on. So it's going to start by going through straight and doing some other stuff along the way. And the wire snaps instantly. Sigh. Let's see how this is looking. So that is what one tile could look like, which I really quite like. Yeah, I'm excited about this board. It's official. This is one of the top level cliffs. This will be the layer below. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to plan this one out. So there's a number of different ways of doing this. Obviously you've got absolute creativity. The only thing that I'm restricted by is that we need to go through there and there. After that anything can happen. So I think what I might do, have a thin path up to there like that, but then I'm going to make this follow on in line with this, so this ends up being really quite sheer and intimidating, hopefully, and then carry on and join up there. So you're just going to cut the end portions here. So that there, like that, and almost like deliberately trying to like damage the bone as I'm cutting here, which is why I'm using this rather than the snap away blade. And then this will be placed on top. Just rough this up. Like that. So I definitely want to continue the idea of this being completely sheer. So I'm going to, exactly there is where it's going to come out. So something, and then just gently ease it off. That bit there needs to be rolled. There we go. Look, something like that. Our 3 layers cut, and we have a board. To do now is make things easier for ourselves in terms of the positioning. So got a glue gun there, over there, hitting up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 26 on here. To go. On to the next layer. Now we need to know whereabouts that needs to be, and you might think, well, we'll just line up the backs, but if you don't line up this back up perfectly, and this one's like maybe half a mil off, so if you want to get it as accurate as possible, you want to measure from the board. So I know it needs to be 20 along from the board, same kind of thing. And then the final stage, we go 15 from the back of the board. Test is, what does it look like? Let's do another one. I'd say pretty good. And the other end. Also pretty good. So this, I'm going to start with a thing as usual. Literally just taking a notch out there, and we're going to do the same here. Like I said before, anything can happen between there and there. We find now what I want here is a real overhanging cliff. Right, We'll do it handheld. So essentially I'm going to cut down straight down through this. And do this and then see what on earth it looks like. So, I mean, I wanted overhanging cliff. I mean, that's overhanging cliff if ever there was. That I think huge amount of space for playing on top, which is good. Huge amount of space for kind of scatter terrain and things. Now with this huge overhanging cliff that I've got, the majority of that is just going to be completely covered up. So what I'm actually going to do with this is, try and save materials where we can. Is this will come out to there. And this is going to be on top, so we can just do a very simple design because only that much of it's going to appear, and then just have any bits. So I can have something like that is just support. All I'm going to do with this one, this is set for the angle of the first level height. So we end up with an overhang like that. Something on our lower level there. I'm going to have this, and then so I want to show you in some detail how I'm going to make this overhanging cliff look that much more interesting and rock-like. To start with, this. So just that in itself, it begins to look a little bit more like a cliff edge might look. I think here and here maybe, it's really going to accentuate this. This in a couple of other places as well, but not to the extreme of that one. Maybe a little one there. Just doing a bit of a cut in and then just using the point of the knife just to pull the, it's not really cutting it out, it's just pulling out the excess there. And I think a bigger one here, I might have it just a little bit. I want to widen that a bit. One of the best ways I find to widen it is to take my steel rule and just push. But create some variety in the height here. So what I might do here is just cut flat there. And it's like I'm filleting it. He said having possibly never filleted against anything in his life, but so that's in there. I'm going to take the rounded edge of my rule, but it doesn't have to be, slide it in there and literally trying to snap it off like that. And just tearing at it to a degree, because that brings out some randomness in the texture, which you don't get from slicing into it carefully. And then just feathering off that edge as well. So not of a lot of force, but just let's have a look at the underneath, which isn't going to get seen a huge amount, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something with it. So to begin with, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this ruler quite firmly over the surface of all of this. And so I'm going to get rid of these things where it's quarter that's cutting through. To my mind, that looks a lot better and a lot cliffier already. But what I'm going to do is all the way across, widen that with the this part you don't want to do with a snap away blade, so I've got my standing knife blade. I'm going to use the point here I'm not cutting, I'm dragging this across the surface. A bit like I was doing that, but because this is sharper, I'm just pause at the rocky bits and just make some pause at the foam, makes it look a bit more broken and rocky. Again, instantly I think that looks more cliff-like. Changing the height of this one slightly. I've had a brainwave, I don't know if this is going to look terrible or not, but I'm going to give it a go at that angle. Get this crack to line up with there. There. I'm going to gently cut here. Yes, the knife blade is extended. I know. Right, this should relatively easily snap off. Bing! Now that's cut out, I can decide whether I want it to be like that, so form a bit of a gap, like that, so it looks like it slips some, or falling down, something like that maybe. So make this all look a bit more rocky by rolling and stamping some aluminium foil on it. There we have it. It's going to get flocked and stuff probably, but that's what I've done to it. And I'll probably finish off by rolling those edges underneath actually, but you don't need to see me do more of that. Somehow I neglected to film the bottom level of this one, but just quite simple design there, just to fit in with the rest of it. And that's what it looks like. So with this top layer, I've decided that it should be a vertical cut, but only for the first inch of it. So after the first inch of height, it can go anywhere. I think that's going to work. Otherwise, all of them are going to join up straight, and I just don't think that's going to look very natural. So that's what I'm going for. So let's try and get the maximum out of your material, because whilst this stuff isn't like stupidly expensive, it's also not the cheapest thing in the world either. So I've got some slope on this already, which I like, so we're probably going to make this into a slopey bit. So we go. Something like that. will do, pig. Shaping of that later on to make that more interesting, but yeah, it could be an interesting piece. That I really want to have a much more accessible angle. And this angle was kind of fine. You put a model on it, doesn't go anywhere, but I still like it to be flatter. So the idea is I'm going to split this into two parts that I'm going to immediately join back together again. Yes, the idea is that is then split like into two pieces, and we'll probably have it something like that. Add some more jaggedness to it, but now I can flatter angle on this. That, like already, so we're cool, and then just the same I can do fits in perfectly. The fact that's lower, and then I can do is just tear a knife across it. So much more like that. Yep. So got this one that we made earlier, and I'm going to design the next two levels for this one. I think here we're basically just going to have it shear up to the edge there. I think maybe a bit of a ledge, but I think in general, I think this bit here may be missing too. But in general, kind of coming out here and sloping up. So we're basically coming all the way up to the edge nearly. Actually, got to think about the layer below. So the layer below will be coming on somewhere along here. So I guess it's going to be a gentle slope. Maybe it could even be flat, but yeah, we're using as much of this as we can, like that. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to pan out, but yeah, that's alright. I probably want to take a bit more off of there to flatten it out a bit. That bit I quite like. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that once this is kind of rolled like that, it's almost going to blend into one smoother slope. And I guess I can decide whether I make the decision now just to take that a bit of a step like that. Design the next layer. So I'm thinking probably more of the same. Bottom layer again, I might just put it in through there to get our slant, and then this can just be vertical. I'm going to use the maximum amount of slope possible here. And so with this bit, we are going to go as close to the bone as we can here, and really trying to line up the wire here at the bottom with as close to the edge as I can. Oh, dreamy. Blend that in nicely, and then I think here, yeah, we'll get this vertical. There we have it. That will be another piece, and I want to do something a little bit different here. So I've marked out the thing here, and I'm going to have it come in like that. So it's practically all the way in, and then sweep out again like that. And the idea is I have this hollowed out, but I'm going to have some rock pillars kind of in the middle of this, so I think that might look quite cool. So I think just as much area as we can possibly get on this, is because looking at the other ones, there's none of them like that. Yeah, nice. So maybe like a rock pillar here and a rock pillar there. 20 to midday in March, and I'm turning the lights on. How depressing is that? I'm going to try something a little bit different. Well, it felt smooth. Can we? Yeah, I think we can make that look pretty awesome. This on top. Cut that like that. And these stone pillars aren't going to be overly complicated. All I'm going to do is cut a shape out of this, cutting out. That can be one pillar there, and let's make another one. Like that. Now for these, I am going to. What am I going to do? I am just going to absolutely rip into them. Bring our piece thing out. So, I mean, that is ridiculous. So look at that shape there. That actually could not fit more perfectly. Yeah, so that one's going to go like that, and I think another one like that, and I think that's going to make for some tactically interesting things if there's an objective up here. So let's do the same with this. Yeah, that there, something like that. So I think having like, is there an objective up there or there, that would be pretty cool. So yes, I like that, so I'm going to glue these down now. So I'm going to show you how to make corner pieces, how I made them for this. Now, all of the ones you can see in front of you are corner pieces. This is a very small corner piece. This one is also a corner piece, but you know, it has a lot more access to it. Then you've got this, that is a corner piece, big old chunky thing with a overhang. But this is also a corner piece, which is massive, but it's more accessible. And then you've got this one, which is a corner piece, which acts like a corner piece, but it's kind of like the cap ends of a straighter bit maybe. And yeah, so let's get into it. So taking this 30mm square thing, and I've marked 15 centimeters in from each edge. And what I've done is I've cut this offers one corner, that offers a corner, this offers a corner, and this offers a corner. So more corners done. So I have a corner piece here, and it's going to do some very simple things to see how quickly I can get this looking more like a cliff. So to begin with, I'm going to cut quite deeply along here. Choose a random angle to go in there. Bit of a slant there, and then I'm going to try and just break this bit off. Exactly like that. And then cut downwards, and then I'm going to meet that cut there to, and then these lines up to there. That line there just instantly makes this bit a lot more interesting and make a lot more sense, I think. Tear the ruler across the edge. Widen this line and then I'm going to call that done. So in 4 minutes and 37 seconds, but yeah, we've got it looking a lot more like a cliff. Bing pot. So you've got this upper level, this mid level, and I'm going to work on the bottom level now. More slanty along kind of here. And I think I'm going to make it basically vertical. Yeah, so slanty here and vertical from the ground there. Right, so let's do the slanty bit first. So with this, I'm looking here, I'm not looking there. I'm not looking where the wire is, I'm looking where the wire will be entering foam at the bottom. Right, and then I want all this here to be vertical, so I'll probably do that with a knife. So I'm going to do this end of it now. Or it's just going to look weird. Yeah, and then yeah, should look good, I think. This I'm going to have a big crack leading down it. Might roll this and see what it ends up looking like for us. The vertical bit, I think I'm going to scratch it up with the ruler. Just a similar thing here, and then these surfaces here, I'm just going to, depending on the angle you're hitting it at and depending on how hard you're doing it, sometimes it's breaking the corners off and sometimes it's just creating texture. And I kind of like the randomness of it. It's so much of scenery making you... Hey Jazz. So much for scenery making you all... Bye Jazz. So much for scenery making, it's hard to turn your brain off. So if you can do stuff which creates stuff that's more random, it's great. There we have it. And after painting and flocking and a bit of resin with this tile as well. This is what it ended up looking like, and this is going to be covered in a future video, so please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know when future videos are released. Anyway, on to the next corner tile. So I'm going to make another corner piece, but unlike they've got corner pieces like this which are tiny, I'm going to make one which is huge using this here, which we try to use this part of on another piece. So that is already at 15 centimeters, and I've got a mark over here for where it needs to come out at the other end. So I'm going to get it at a bit of an angle. Really want this piece to be as big as possible. So this will function exactly the same as this one would once it's joining up with the other tiles, because they've still got exactly the same points that they join up with the other one. This is just one that's huge. Is create some different height bits. So they're going quite far here. One of my favourite tricks, I'm going to jam the ruler in here. Just kind of see what happens. So I feel like it's going to be, let's weaken it around there. Ping! Huge corner piece. A few things have happened since you last seen it. I've cut from underneath as well, just to give that more of an overhang look to it, which I kind of like. And with the bits underneath, I could have done the same thing I've done with other corners, where you put this down, put this on top, we draw them out. We really don't need to use as much foam as that, so I've turned to some offcuts. So on the bottom layer, it's going to go, so that's going to be there. This one is going to be there like so. This one, that's it, we're literally going to see that much of it. So that is going to be positioned there. So I'm just looking at the numbers here to line it up. That's going to be there just as a supporting piece, which isn't really going to get seen. It's really going to be that way around. And this one here is going to be like that. I've got one here just to support, because this back corner doesn't matter. If I was making this for somebody else, then I'd probably go all out and have it foam right into the corner. This is for me, so it matters a little bit less. And then this is going to be stuck on top. Bring it up to the camera, then we get a really nice overhang thing. So it's mainly going to look like that, but if you were to look down low, look more like that. Honestly, could not be much more pleased with how this turned out. Obviously this has been painted, it has been flocked, and there's a tiny little rope thing hanging down you can see just there. And like I said earlier, this is all going to be covered in a future video, so subscribe to the channel. Trying something a little bit different with this one. So I've got this corner here that's got a slope that models would go up, and I've got this bottom level that's been cut earlier just randomly, so we need something to go in here. Now, rather than it just being like every other one that I've got, I'm going to use this piece here, which I'm going to create a slope so this can carry on up. And rather than have it just be like it has been with all the other ones, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the angle right, but place something there like that, and then carve it up a little bit, because it doesn't have to be all flowing things. It can just be individual bits of rock. So having some gaps and stuff I think will make it a little bit more interesting. This is at the angle it needs to be at, and then as soon as I've cut through, go as steep as I possibly can. Okay. Alright, I'm going to move the wire, so really as flat an angle as we can get. Let's see where that is. So that's like that. I mean, that's not bad. See if we can get it really. I think having that line there really helped. So that's, make sure I can see that. And again, just working to get it. Hot wire cutter, thank you for your time. And really crush this down and try and flatten it out so it feels more like a passable thing. The drawer mysteriously opens. Woo! I'm gonna cut into there. Into there. That's fine. I just need to get a nice piece to go in here. You can tell I've been doing this project too long. I just guessed that angle cut and it's about perfect. I need to tear the edges up a little bit. Yeah, I quite like that, something just completely different. Carve up this a little bit more and flatten it out with a foam, with the foil, and then stick it down, and then that'll be another corner constructually, if that's not a word, completed. Nothing quite like some natural light to make these look even better. This was the finished result of this particular tile. A little bit of grass, but mainly concentrating on the grey flock. But if you want to see how this is done, then subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. On to the next one. Now doing what I call an internal corner. So this is just going to be this bit here, cut off. A mark here, a mark where the wire is going to come through, a mark there where it needs to, things need to start off. So we can play around with what happens here a little bit, but these will be matching up perfectly with the cuts that we've done already. So that is it for the bottom layer of the internal corner. 15 centimeters in there to 15 along here. So it's a curve here, so anything can happen between here and here. So I'm going to do two in a very, very different style. Because of how it joins up, it's never going to be the most interesting thing. So we need another layer. We've got here. So 20 there, and then so it's only what happens between there and there that we're interested in. So we're going to cut in straight away like that, and then essentially just be a slope, I think. I don't think there's any point in it being any more complicated than that, so I think just sloping that off is going to be the way. Yeah, I might use the handheld wire cutter for that. I'm going to work on making this as much as a slope as possible. It has a just remembered that there's a layer underneath this, so yeah, that's far from ideal. Damn, because that was looking really cool, so no. That was going to be really hard work, but I think that actually might be fine. I mean, that's really fine. It's like how it looked before I had to change it, but as we have this, we might as well use it. And I said when I was cutting out I wanted it to be an overhang, so let's create a real overhang on it. That is fine. It's a knife here just to over here. Let's make a step in things here. Well, not a step, but just a difference in height. And then it isn't really going to get seen a lot, but it's going to stuff it all up. And our internal corner ends up looking like that. Just with this rolled with tinfoil. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to stick it down just like I had with the other ones. And look how good this looks. I could not be more pleased with how this turned out. It is absolutely fantastic. The rock effect is amazing. The flock looks great in it, and it's going to make a fantastically interesting tactical piece of scenery. Hi there and welcome to Good Enough Scenery. In this part of the modular mountain board series, I'm going to show you how I'm turning the rocky tiles and turning them into this. Here is not the completed board, but the board after it has been flocked and rocked and painted and shaded and washed and all sorts. So that's what's going to be happening in this part of the video now. Oh Christ. Why do I do this to myself? Because it's going to be awesome, that's why. This is just regular PVA glue, and any vertical or near vertical surface I am going to seal with PVA glue, and you'll see why in the next stage. But yeah, this is going to be time consuming with 20 tiles to do. When you come back, most of these will probably look exactly the same because it'll be once the glue's dried. Yeah, see you in 6 to 10 working years. So I'm going to show you how to make some really simple washes. So take some water, take some washing up liquid. I don't have an exact measurement on this, it's just some. Take some paint, so I'm going to go for really bright blue, red, have a yellow. Yeah, just going to literally just mix it all up like that. Use an oil brush and just kind of, when you're looking at for it, so you're kind of painting it on the side, and you're looking for it to be kind of the consistency of milk is what you're going for. Essentially, I'm just going to stir these up, so I'll be back in just a minute. Now I'm going to make a grey wash. Now, if you're going to make a grey wash, then I strongly advise that you make a white wash to begin with. Consistency wise, that's pretty good already. Right, we want a grey wash, not a white wash, so literally adding that much in. If you've ever mixed up grey paint before, you'll know that the amount of white to black that you need is ridiculous. Black is such a dominant colour when you're doing mixing. And there's a grey wash and a little bit of mess to clear up. Right, we can now start painting these, and don't be alarmed by how bright they are, and don't be alarmed by what it looks like for a little while. So what I want to do with this is just going to load up the brush and just put some of the wash on in a few places. Not really overly thinking about it, but the one thing I'm kind of trying to do is concentrate on the vertical surfaces. I'm not a geologist, but I reckon the vertical surfaces will look different to the horizontal ones. The other one here. So I've got a blue one. Now this blue one I've noticed can be pretty dominant, so I'm going to try not to add too much at any given time. Yeah, so orange one here. Yep, looks pretty terrible. Don't worry. Going to do a similar thing with this next one. Something like that. And this is what they are looking like, having been painted in this crazy way. Now, if you finish the last part of the video worried about my mental state, then that's fine. But as you can see, that it's the tone has come out of the colour a little bit already. So here we have a grey wash. We are going to go over anywhere where we've got some colour. So fairly heavy loading on the brush, and I'm trying to stipple it rather than paint it. It may be the case that you have to do a couple of coats just to bring the colour down a bit, but I think it's nice to do it. You could just go straight for a black one and that would really kill any colour straight away. I like to do it in a lighter amount and go over it a couple of times, maybe even 3 or 4 times, because it takes a matter of minutes to do. You know, it's not accurate painting. I'm not caring about it going into other areas. It's just literally splodging it on, as you can see, and it dries pretty quickly as well. It dries much faster than paint would, and I have no idea why. But so hopefully you'll agree that it's looking better already. I mean, it was previously looking kind of that bright, and now it's toned down a bit already. So I'm going to get on and do the rest of them. Next up, I'm going to load up a makeup brush with some white and get off the excess, and what I'm doing is I'm going perpendicular to the surface here, kind of doing not a dry brush because it's not dry, but I'm not just painting it either. But notice as I go across how it picks up those heavier details that are kind of carved into the surface there, leaving the lower ones to remain darker. Do this on the top surfaces as well. We've got lots of texture there. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing with that yet, but to affect the base parts now, and if you've watched the first part on the basic tiles, you'll know how I did this before, but I'm going to put some white glue down in a couple of places, black down. I'm going to stipple this. The idea is that we create a non-uniform kind of grey, blacky, whitey pattern. Majority of this is going to get covered over anyway, so it doesn't matter, but something like that. So I'm going to do that across the rest of the boards now. I've been really struggling to decide exactly how these are going to be flocked, but I think I've finally decided upon something. So the top surfaces are going to be lightly flocked in a dark green, and there are going to be places where there are kind of hillside type bits, but most of it is going to remain rocky, particularly the lower layers. So I'm going to take this dark green, this which is a spring mixture, and this which is a kind of mid fine turf. I'm going to mix that all together, and there's different size bits in there, and there's different colours in there, and hopefully it's going to come out as a shade a little bit darker than that, hopefully. So to start with, I'm going to put glue up to the edges on all of the top bits, but I'm not going to aim for like a full smothering of glue. I'm going to try and leave parts where, you know, the stone's still going to show through, and the idea is I'm going to do a quick flock with it and then tap it off nearly instantly. So there will be nice grass coverage, but there will also be patches with the stones thrown through. That's the hope. So I'm going to demonstrate what I'm going to do on this one here, because I think it's going to be the best opportunity to show a bunch of different things. So first off, I'm going to be going right up to the edge. Then as soon as I'm coming up to kind of these kind of rocky, edgy bits, I'm going to just stop a little bit short and worry less about the coverage. Don't want to be losing this kind of cool stony detail we've got there, but we do want to have some grass coverage. I think there's lightly down there. I'm going to apply glue to the rest of them. And I thought it was just going to be grassy, so I decided this would be a more accessible way up. So once again, I'm going to go right up to the edges, go down the slope here, trying to make sure up to the edges is consistent. After that, it can be, I want good coverage, but it doesn't have to be a perfect coverage. Something like that will be absolutely fine, so I'm going to leave that for a few minutes and then I'm going to tip it off. Whatever's left, we're going to leave it there like that. So anyway, that's what that one is looking like. So I'm going to do all of them and then shake it off. For that, I'm just going to tap it off like that. So we get the grassy detail, but we keep the rocky detail as well. More to be added to that, but that's the kind of thing that we're going for. Yeah, keeping some of the rocky detail. Get on to the next stage of flocking, so I can take my stronger glue here, and essentially anywhere where it is sheer, I am going to chuck some of this glue down. And on this one, a bit more interesting maybe, so a bit here. I'm actually going to put some of this here along the line of that. And I'm just going to spread that out just a little bit like that. And now everywhere else, I am going to just take regular PVA and I'm going to cover that. Not any kind of really slopey stuff, not going to do it on there, but everywhere else, going to give it a quick coating of this. So trying not to mix in, so this is regular PVA rather than the stronger stuff. Now we can move on to the flocking stage of it. So I've got my smallish stones that are going to act as kind of small rocks, and I'm going to tip those up to the edges. Got a little boring cup, and it's going to hold it against the edge and just allow bits to fall out as I move it along. Now with this one here, then I'm going to go around these pillars and have basically the same idea. A few there. Now here I'm just going to load that up, and I'm literally going to chuck it in there. And I'll tell you what, I quite like the idea of that, so what I'm going to do is actually cover this in glue. I never make it up as I go along now. So I'm going to give that a second. Do the rest of this. This, which is isopropyl alcohol, which helps to break bonds in glue up. So I'm going to literally soak that, and that glue will start to dissipate and set and stuff, and I'd still expect 50+% of them to not stay there. But next up we've got this, which is practically sand with its consistency, and we're going to just sprinkle this across like that. And this is going over to the other parts of it as well, so this is going to the base part as well. Trying to get it in most places, but you know, not caring if we miss too many. Like that. Next part of this, we're going to take some matte scenic spray, and we are going to give a thorough coating of this. So this grassy surface is going to be a bit sticky, so what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to sprinkle some of this where it joins between rock and grass, just to, it's a bit too much of a harsh line at the moment from my point of view. And also this stuff needs to go across other parts of the board as well, just kind of randomly to break up the colour. Okay, and now I'm going to spray it all again, which I'm going to cover the rest of it. Scenic sealant spray from Gaming, and this will help. This will give everything that's there the best chance of staying where it's been put. Yeah, that'll do. So, and I'll probably there'll probably be a few coats of this on every single tile. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I made the riser tiles, just a couple in the bottom right at the moment. So when I first came up with this board, it was really important to me that any higher areas of play were actually properly playable. So the riser tiles can be used as a board edge, as they're being used in this case, or they can form a massive central hill. They're not the most complicated to make, but I still think they are worthwhile making, and they've added a real element of different playability, so I'm really pleased with how they've turned out. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how I've textured them, how I've flocked them, how I've cut the holes in them and everything, and how I've put them together. Not the most difficult thing in the world to do, but like I said, still worthwhile doing, so this is how I did it. One of the very simplest boards to make, or tiles to make, and going to be one of the higher ones. So got our foam, and we are going to create rocky texture across the whole thing to start with. So it's going to roll this across. Maybe create some damage in places as well, but just trying to get this uneven rocky texture. So that is with some texture added. So what's going to happen, we're going to have these on the bottom, lining up as well as we can with the edge. Then we're going to glue this on, and then we're going to glue that on, and that's going to be one. I just realised that we can store some scatter rocks under there. So all we're going to do to stick this down is just use some glue gun. Closely positioned first time, because you don't get a huge amount of time, so we're lining that up as good as we can with that edge. So be careful with this again, because you're not going to have a huge amount of time. So in theory, if we line up one edge, the back here it should be close. Yeah, that's one of our higher pieces done, and so this is like the riser that we just made, but a little bit different. So I've done the texturing. I missed out a few bits. You'll see why in a second. And this is stuck to this, which I'll be lying if I said it wasn't for something else, but then I changed my mind about something or other. So anyway, so what we've got is this kind of big hollow. We've got this that I've just stuck some things. So this is going to make sure that it's all the right height. So what I thought, this might work, it might be absolutely horrendous. Kind of cool if I actually cut out some chasm-y type bits. Something like that, and we'll texture these corners a bit. And my thinking, we'll see how terrible this looks, is that we have that like that, and paint all of this jet black. A few bits in the surface which are a little perilous, shall we say. Just some points of interest there. I think will make the thing is that have it like that, but if you're not sure, you can just grab a scatter bit of terrain and drop it on top. Or even, that might be cool, you'd have it like that. Joyous. Yeah, I like the idea of really adding some depth to that. So yeah, next up will be to paint that all completely black, which you don't really need to see me do. So this is our top piece, and I think the black in that down there makes a real nice sense of proper depth, minerality. So we're going to do some dry brushing on the tops of these. The majority of it's going to be flocked anyway, but I still like to be complete about this. So loading up the brush, getting the excess off, and just going perpendicular so it's hitting the higher detail and leaving the higher the detail, the lighter it gets. So I'm going to do that on the rest of it. So they are dry brushed, looking a lot more rocky now. Next up will be to flock them. So I'm going to flock these now. The way which we do it is very simple. Got some PVA glue, and I'm going to make sure the edges of this are thoroughly glued, and then the rest of it we can be a bit more loosey-goosey about it. Flock here, and make sure the edges are covered, and then the rest of it we can be loosey-goosey with. So I'll leave that to dry for a little bit, and then I will tap it off and reclaim some of this grass, because not all of it is going to stick. Just going to do a couple more things here. So I've got some matte scenic sealant spray, and I'm just going to cover these tiles in that. This will help do two things for us. It's going to help keep that flock down. It's also going to put a bit of glue on the surface. And I'm just going to sprinkle some of this grey flock. So it's called grey stone, funnily enough. And it's just going to break up the lines between grass and stone. Got some sandy type stuff here, and I'm not expecting this to stay as well as the flock, but just to again break up the sand bit. So same over here. Some of the flock down, and then just a bit of this sandy stuff that's mostly going to fall down those holes. Another coat of this. So I'm going to add some moss. Now if you've watched my video on the basic tiles, then this is going to be a very similar recipe. I'm going to add a few more things in. So to begin with, it's going to add in a whole bunch of glue. Now the bulk of our moss is going to be this light green coarse grass, ridiculously bright green flock, a pinchful just to add some different colours into it, and a little bit of darker, but not a lot. And what happens is the glue will start taking on the green colour. And what I might do, where that's gone really, really light, I'm going to add in some dark green. I'm not sure how much that will. Now, most of us don't like a mossy crack, but I'm going to make one anyway. So we have what's left of our mix here, and I'm going to. This is mostly not going to stick because it's been left overnight. But that'll do. Hi there, and welcome to Good Enough Scenery. Join us at this beautiful lake. So I'm going to cut a big, essentially, hole out of this, and the way I'm doing that is I've made a hole through it. Now we're going to pass the wire through that. Hopefully this is going to save time later on. Tighten it up. Decided to stop trying to be clever and to just have a cut inside, which I can then mend later on. So let's join back up with here. But we will just disconnect the wire to get out. And for absolute simplicity, let's just cut through there as well. Oh, Jesus Christ. This bit we can do something with later. And let's look at the damage here. Can we put this together again? Finally sorted out the jigsaw puzzle, and this is what it will end up looking like. As to whether I use it now, I don't know. I might have messed it up a little too much. So I wasn't very sure about continuing with this, I don't know, real mess up that I made. Keeping my words PG for no apparent reason. I'm going to stick it down to this next piece. So this is all pretty solidly in place. So we're going to have some fun creating some different things going on within here. So let's start by creating a bit of a ledge here. In general, we're going to be tearing up a lot of this. And this is going to have a resin port in it, so it's not overly important how the inside of it is, but the higher part is. Myself to a new bit of tin foil to roll this whole thing with. So I'm going to finish off texturing the rest of the top of that and the top bit of that. So we have our, calling this lake tile textured. Next up, our PVA glue. And the idea is I'm just going to fill this up to the top with PVA. No, I'm not. I'm going to chuck about that much in. But essentially I'm just going to seal, mainly concentrating on the walls here, not so much on the flat. The flat I'll do as well. But using not the biggest brush, but not the smallest, to try and get into all of this texture, to try and kind of seal it to a degree. Now I'll leave that to dry. So the PVA is all dry. Now this might be unnecessary, but I'm doing it anyway. So I've got my glue gun, and what I'm going to do is just spend some time going around the bottom edge where this joins on. I think that it's going to be perfectly sealed anyway, but if you've ever had a resin leak before, you know how much of an issue it can be. So let's go all the way around all the edges with the glue gun. Okay, now that these are all mixed up, we can start applying these colours quite kind of randomly to the edges of our lake tile here. And what we're doing is we're going to load up the brush, and we are just going to spot it in a few places, and if it drips down, it runs down, that's absolutely fine. Just not really thinking overly about what I'm doing. I'm going to try not to concentrate it too much in any one area. See, it just ran down there, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to do the same sort of thing with the yellow. Give some red a go. And I appreciate that right now this is probably going to be looking really weird and you're wondering what I'm doing, but a tried and tested thing, so trust me on this one. The thing is that rock isn't just grey or brown or whatever. It has all sorts of elements in it. It has different metals in it which are different colours. So, but for a little bit it will look a bit like I've just let a 3-year-old take over what I'm doing. Trust the process. Yeah. If you think it looks terrible, you're not wrong. Come back to this probably tomorrow when it's dry. So you can see that the colour splodges have lost a bit of vibrancy, which is exactly what we wanted and expected. Using the grey wash that I made, and this we are going to cover all of these areas with. The idea is that we want it to end up looking grey, but then with the colours underneath showing through, but with just less vibrancy. Let's see what it looks like once it's dry. Okay, this is very nearly dry enough for it to be doing another coat, so it's looking closer to what I want it to look like, but it's not looking what I want it to look like yet. So let's give it another coat, and if that doesn't give the results that we want, then I will go for maybe a black wash, or maybe I'll just make this one a bit darker. Let's see how that looks in a bit. So I did one more coat of the grey, and that's left it looking kind of how I want it to be looking, I think. So you can see some elements of reds and yellows and blues coming up in the colour, which is better than it just being plain grey. So next I'm going to do some dry brushing with some white. Now, this is not going to be a strict dry brush. I'm really not going to try and get all of the paint off, but I'm not going to have a brush which is fully loaded. Now this is going to have resin pour in it anyway, so I'm going to start with the most concealed areas of this, just to kind of just check what it's going to look like. So have a close look at this bit here, just to show you the difference between doing it and not doing it. So how much detail that ends up bringing up. So I'm going to do the same thing over the top as well. This is probably going to get, well, it's going to get some flock put on it. That's the painting part of it done. Just as a final thing, now it's done. So I've taken a chunk of the foam that came out of here, and I've just kind of shaped it a bit and carved into it a bit, and scraped it with a steel rule a bit, and that is going to sit in there like this. And the bits, these are the kind of bits that I've cut off, and quite simply all I'm going to do with those is apply a bit of texture, although it's probably not necessary, and I'm just going to sit them in a few different places. So I'm going to do a few of those, and then all I'm going to do then is just to stick them down with a glue gun. I really don't want this to leak when I do a resin pour, so there's a couple of things I'm going to do might be considered overboard, but this is definitely not overboard. So I'm going to cut a piece of acetate, which is this stuff here. I'm going to cut something that is 5 by 7. Okay, so that is going to cover up this hole here. This is UV resin, so this will be set off by a UV light torch I've got here. So we are going to put some along a line like that. Perfect. Right, so I'm going to place this like that, and then put the torch on it. really don't want this to leak, I'm going to do the whole of the inside as well. So I'm going to fill this bit up here with resin as well. And I'm also, I've already done it with a glue gun, but I would much rather a couple of pounds worth of resin, that's cost, not weight, probably wouldn't even be that, going all around the edge of this and making sure that it's properly sealed, than deal with a gigantic resin leak, because I think if it was to fail, it would be very dramatic. Let's tip that so you can kind of see what's going on there. So that is kind of filled with a couple of mil of resin, just to really make sure that is properly blocked off. Let's do the other side as well, just for the rest of it. So here, for example, really don't want anything coming down, going through that crack. So you can put it on, it seals very quickly. Now for the rest of it, it's going to be putting a bead of this and this on for a few seconds, and I'm going to go all the way around the bottom edge. So next up with this, so I'm going to use this stronger glue, and I'm going to brush this around the edges, any like edges like this. So something like that. And from there I'm going to take these larger stones that I've got and sprinkle these towards the edge. And now we're going to spray now this much finer bits of sandy, rocky something or other. Sprinkle this again towards the edges, and going to give this another quick. And finally, actually penultimately, we have our grey stone here. So, and then another coat. Leave that to dry. Final stage for this resin pour is to use up this greenery stuff that I got in a basing kit like about 2 years ago. I've never known what to do with. So what I'm going to do with it is to put it down at the bottom of the lake. So I feel like it looks like the sort of thing you get at the bottom of a lake. I haven't done anything else with it in 2 years, so let's go with that. Plant life at the bottom. At the bottom of the deep blue sea. No idea what I'm talking about. Yeah. Whilst that is drying, I'm going to mix up the resin. I'm doing a really deep resin pour on this one. You know, probably close to 1.5 inches, 2 inches. See how much I've got of this stuff. But this, what I'm using is deep pour stuff. So if you're using, if it doesn't say deep pour on it, then you probably shouldn't copy me on what I'm about to do, and I have a massive bit of cardboard down in case somehow that it's going to leak out. So I don't know how it would fail, but this is a 2:1 ratio. I put my gloves on because I hate the sticky resin hand thing that you get going on. So I'll start by dropping a bit of plastic in there. That's good. Good start. I'm going to fill this up to basically the top. Carefully dump that in there, and fill it up to the top. And then the stirring begins. Just remember in Jurassic Park they say life finds a way. Similarly, resin finds a way. So paranoia took over, and I put a bead of hot glue around the join between the tiles and all around that, just because resin will find a way out if there is a way out. I decided to add the smallest amount of colour, so I'm putting in a couple of drops of dark green. Just going to give it a slight tinge of colour, Gonna go for it. Go. That's the easiest part to pour into. Probably here. Immediate signs that it's leaking everywhere. But whilst that is doing that, I'll mix up the rest of the resin. Probably not going to add a huge amount more height, but depth I should say, but there's always way more on the sides of these things than you can ever possibly realise. This is what we're working with. So we've got our beautiful resin pour here, which is done. That's no longer sticky or anything, so that's cool. Since doing this, I've decided that the edges are going to be flocked, so of all the tiles. So I'm going to have to just go over this at the edges. I want good coverage on the edges, but I don't want any to go into the thing itself. I mean, it's not a disaster if it does, because you can just clean it. But so we have our lake looking absolutely beautiful. Love it. It's fairly heavy that now. Now, final thing we need to do is to stick this down to a base. So we have a base with my cat doing a handbrake turn, and zoom these for like a quarter of a second there. Full piece of this cut to perfect size. Next layer as well. I've been umming and ahhing about whether to do something with the surface of this water. A little bit too shiny, so I'm going to use some Vallejo diorama. Vallejo. Working on some little details which are the board more playable or more pretty. Use some of this, but that's what I'm going to look at. Is really simple. Spread it out as much as possible, and when I've used this stuff before, first of all, I put it on. It's pretty thick, but I'm trying to use as little as possible to get as thin a layer as before you pull that tight, as much as I want to try and use for the whole thing. This is just a regular pin, nothing special about it. Over the whole thing, and then once I've done that, I'll look at how I'm going to texture, and then okay, that is now covered. Pull that tight. So. And we'll grab some scissors. If you've watched this channel before, you'll know I'm famously bad at easing. Make some texture to it. It will dry completely clear unless it's very, very thick. Okay. And then this can just be pushed into the foam, and then it's very unstable looking. And then that is going to be it. Both now has complete, I think, a rope. Beautiful. Could not love this more. Absolutely love every single little detail that is included in the slate tile, and I think it really works well on the rest of the board. So that can just be climbed up, whereas otherwise you'd have to find another way around. And because it's on this pin thing, this is just foam that you can say, you know what, I don't want to have it there. It leaves a pinhole, obviously. You know what, I think it'd be better off if it had been put here instead. If you like, soak the, and I might do this, you can soak the string in PVA glue, and then that makes it a lot more rigid rather than springy. But so add some more details to this by adding some more greenery, but on the cliffs themselves. So I've just got some PVA glue here. I've got this stuff that I got from Timo, so it looks like wool, but then it's got like little loops coming off of it, so not sure if we can make it with actual wool, but this is what I've got. So what I've been doing is I've been pulling at it. What I'm doing is just touching that on there, and it's just instantly sticking onto it. Anything slightly tacky, I think this stuff just instantly sticks to. Then we're going to take our spray, absolutely soak it, and then got these little leaves. You can get these on Amazon, put a link below. Sprinkle some leaves on there. It's got a pinch of leaves here. I'm just going to push them up into the thing so it looks something like that. Probably look a little bit better when it's dried, but yeah, I'm going to do that on a couple of other pieces as well. So this is what it ended up looking like. I really like the overgrown look on a couple of the cliff faces there. I've got one on a corner piece here, and then finally going to show you what it looks like with a load of overgrowth on this mine entrance. Full video on that later on. So I'm going to add some moss. Now if you've watched my video on the basic tiles, then this is going to be a very similar recipe. I'm going to add a few more things in. So to begin with, it's going to add in a whole bunch of glue. Now the bulk of our moss is going to be this light green coarse grass. I'm going to put, I've got this ridiculously bright green flock, which I'm going to add a pinchful just to add some different colours into it, and a little bit of darker, but not a lot. Just it's going to mix this into like a weird, chunky paste, I guess. And what happens is the glue will start taking on the green colour. I need more than that. Where that's gone really, really light, I'm going to add in some dark green. I'm not sure how much that will change it. Okay, that's a bit better. Maybe it's no different. But either way, that's that mixed up, ready to be applied to wherever I want to apply it to. Mossiness and grossness to these cliff edges. So I've got some in the crevice here, but I'm going to just go over that again. And maybe down into this bit here. The real area I want to work on is this bit, this cliff face here. I've loaded up the centre of the brush with this, and then I'm going to something like that. See what it looks like when it's dried, might darken it. But yeah, that's kind of cool. So here is that cliff face having just dried, nothing else done with it at all. So a lot of that green that you saw there was just lost into the ether, or into the foam rather. And then the moss is just stuck to the outside, and I think it looks really awesome. I'm just giving you a close-up on the crack. But that's what it looked like, and I'll show you in a few other places. So down on a little crevice here on another tile, and then on this one here you'll see that down the crevice there, and I imagined a runoff down into this little creek bit here to kind of build it up. And the last one to show you is this one here, where it's just absolutely covered this surface in it, and I really like how that moss all comes together. Anyway, on to scatter rocks. I'm going to make some scatter rocks of different sizes. So this you might recognise as something that was cut out of the lake tile over there. I'm going to gently cut it in half, and the way in which I'm going to make this is very similar to the way in which I've made the cliffs, in that I'm going to work with what I'm given to a degree. So I'll probably make this a bit more overhanging. Something like that. So now I've carved an interesting shape I'm happy with, I'm going to take my steel ruler and really tear up these sides. Take this randomness, which I like to have in my rocks. And then finally, my trusty tin foil to smooth out some of the, or unsmooth out some of the flatter edges. And we have a pretty decent looking rock, but I want to make it fit in with the rest of the stuff that I've done already. Got my washes here. Just going to apply some of these in a couple of different places. But if you haven't seen the other parts of the video, this colour starts out very extreme, but it does soften quite considerably. Maybe a nice bit of yellow here. Tends to go more brown eventually, so I'm going to have that more towards the top, and that is that done for the time being. Going to make some more just like that. Okay, so I've thrown together 3 of these quickly, different sizes and shapes and stuff, and I've got a grey wash, and I'm going to go over all of those crazy coloured parts with this grey wash to take the colour out of them, but still leave that kind of tinge of whatever colour showing through. And it can be the case, and you'll know if you watch this on my other videos, you might want to put 2, 3, 4 layers on, depends how dark your wash is, and depends what you want it to look like in the end. But if you ever look at cliffs, you'll notice that they are not just grey. There we go, we'll leave that to dry. It's got all of our rocks here, and we are now going to dry brush it in white. So I'm going to take a makeup brush, load it up, get the excess off, but it doesn't matter too much if you don't. And from here, we're going to go perpendicular to the surface, and all of that detail that we've scratched into it or carved into it will start to show up a lot more. It's also done this surface that has been rolled with the tin foil as well, brings that up too. It's a very, very quick way to make your rocks look a lot more detailed. Just to add something to these scatter rocks, got some moss mixture here, and anywhere where I feel like excess water might have been gathered, I'm going to really just get some of the, this is like a flock and glue mixture in it, so just grind it up. No real formula, just wherever I think it might look interesting. So for this one, I think this top bit would be more of a runoff, so it would be less moss gathering here and a lot more gathering down this part. Which might be completely wrong, might not be how yucky, grossy, mossy things do their thing, but that's how my things are doing their thing. So. And here are a few of the rocks. So this is the first one that I covered in moss. You see that, again, the green kind of soaks in a little bit, leaving behind the flock. This one is one that I didn't put any colour at all and just dry brush. So you can see the difference between that one, for example, and then this one here. You can see how much more the colours come out. This is the second rock I put moss on. Really love how this one turned out. Really like the colours in it. And then finally, you can have a rock that you cover in vines as well. So there are lots of different options for how you're going to do your scatter rocks. Lovely to have some variety. So this tile here is one where, this is a corner piece, but I decided to have what was intended to be kind of caps to the end of things. nearly worked. I didn't quite like exactly how it looked, then I had a great idea of it as I was doing the flocking. So what I've done is I've cut some foam, I've rolled it with a tin foil, and I've wedged that all into there. Also kind of sealed up the back there with the hot glue gun, and I have one more rock to go here. To call it a waterfall would be a stretch, but a stream of water coming out of there and then filling up this area here, which as I was flocking it, I put a lot more bigger rocks here than I have on any other ones, and the idea is that's supposed to be like a small pool of water. First thing, get some cling film, which is perfect for this. Be terrible at using scissors. Oh, it's going alright. Usually I'm very good at using scissors. And height-wise, it is 1 finger, so 1 finger long. Your fingers may be bigger or smaller than mine, but like that, just going to fold it again, and then that will sit in there. Hold this in place. I've got some UV resin, pop some down there, and just touch the end on like that, and then leave that light shining on it for a bit. So that probably already looks a bit like a waterfall, but we're going to do plenty more to that. So just here, we do not want this to create a massive mess for us, so I'm going to put some UV resin here, and then we're going to set about drying that, which happens fairly quickly. That is now nice and solid. Doesn't look it, but it is, trust me. I'm also keen on having just a stream of water coming out of here and filling up this with some resin as well. That's why I put some more rocks there. So I'm going to mix up enough resin to do the waterfall and fill up this bit as well. Mixy, 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 mixy. Tip it all down here. Now it's very difficult to get that done accurately with just a tip. So what I'm going to do is, I'm fully expecting all of the resin that I put onto here to dribble down. That's kind of the point. Now whilst that is levelling, I'm going to tip some here. Essentially I'm letting gravity do the work here. So let's just go for it now. I'll tip it on there, and wherever it goes is where it goes. So it's self-leveling, so it's going to spread out. Don't know how far it's going to spread out, but hopefully a fair way. So it's honestly spread a little bit further than I wanted it to. So I'm going to do what all good professionals do in anything, is I'm going to pretend that was the plan all along, and I'm going to put a few more stones here, which will stop the flow and make it look like that's how far we wanted it to go. Yeah, I'm going to leave that to set now. Okay, this is where it's up to. This is now solid, and I really like how that's all kind of spread out. Had to guide it a little bit, as you saw. What I'm going to do to begin with, I'm just going to put some resin running down there, and I'm going to immediately set it. So I'm thinking I want to add some more life and texture to that. So what I'm going to do, and I've not done this before, so it could go horribly wrong, but you know, we're here to experiment. So I'm going to take a half decent amount of this resin in there. I've never done this with the UV resin before. I have done it with I've done a silicone rubber one, and I could do a silicone rubber one, but I'm just experimenting here. So we have a bag of this is fake snow. I'm going to mix that up. My plan here is to put this at the bottom here and have it look like foam, and I think already it kind of does. Let's put some higher up as well. sadly you may not have light running all the way through it. So yeah, that looks a lot more like a waterfall might, so that's better. Maybe fold here that first. So I get a pinch of this and try and that's looking a lot more like it's got some life to it. So add some of my mossy mix up. So I feel like the wetter an area is, the more likely it is to have some mossy stuff going on. Try not to get it on the actual waterfall itself. And after all that, this is what they ended up looking like. So here's the waterfall in all its glory. I really love how this looks with the moss and the flowing water. And over here to the creek, which is just some resin, which is set, but I still think that looks awesome. I added some extra moss detail as well. Today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I made this in quite a lot of detail. I'm going to apologise first of all. Parts of this video are filmed at a less than ideal angle, but hopefully all the information that I supply is still going to allow you to follow along should you want to make one yourself. No idea how big this is going to be, no idea how tall or wide, so what I'm going to do is just guess at some sizes. And then once I've got those sizes, I'm going to basically work it backwards. Also going to create some little angled pieces as well. Plank things as well, about that big. Got lots of random pieces of foam, and this is a wire brush which is not as sharp as it once was. Drag this across. If you've seen this on my channel before, you will have seen me do this lots of times when making wood effect stuff. Actually, it tears into the surface quite randomly, and once painted it kind of looks kind of wood effect. So I'm going to do that on all these pieces, which you don't really need to see. And now Jazz is going to do some painting. Fine, I'll do it. So, as it's wood, I'm going for brown. Weird that. So the way I like to do this is I get 2 paintbrushes and load them both up, and then kind of have one doing a holding roll and one kind of doing the painting, because they've both got paint in them. You kind of can get through it quite quickly. But yeah, nothing more complicated than just painting them really. So yeah, going to do that with all of these. Not exciting to watch. So with those wood bits drying, I turned to hollowing out this piece that I had made. I mean, it wasn't originally my plan, but then someone suggested that I should have a mine entrance, and it was too good an idea to not do. And I didn't want to make a brand new tile, so I thought, why not just go for it with one that I've got. So I took a corner piece, decided that it should be about a hand width wide, and then set about just slowly carving into the rock face at that width, just building up the depth bit by bit, deciding what height it should be, and then cutting out that, and just slowly just building up the depth so that hopefully I could just slide this out as one big piece. And you'll see that I actually managed to do that in a minute. From there, I actually just eyeballed the angle it was going out at, and then cut in that angle at the back, and did that on the other side as well. And then from there, I realised that it wasn't going to be safe at all to use the blade that I was using without extending it super long. So I turned to a trusty, just normal kitchen knife. So I slid it all the way through, and lo and behold, my eyeballing of it was absolutely perfect, because you'll see in a minute when I pushed the knife all the way through, look where it came out, exactly where I'd set it to be. So that was satisfying, and it was even more satisfying when I did it on the other side as well. So I was again just slowly building up the depth on both of the sides so that I could push this out as one big thing. Look at it, exactly the same on the other side. Check me out. It's then time to turn my attention to the top cut. So again, just slowly building up the depth, just not a lot of pressure, just using the sharpness of the knife just to slowly work my way through, and then doing the same on the front, and hopefully just making it all meet up nicely. And then I completely forgot about the bottom, so I needed to make sure that I unstuck the bottom as well. And finally, after it wasn't that long, I think it's probably took me about 7 minutes, definitely dead at that point. But look at this, just pushing and pushing, and one solid piece. I mean, as a human, that aren't many things more satisfying than that. I hope you get to experience it one day. And yeah, that was just I filmed that to literally remind myself, you need to glue this bit back down again, because it did pop off when I was doing the cutting of the underneath. So I took the bit that I cut out, and then I cut off the corner part, because I wanted to plug up the back of the hollow so that the mine shaft looked as dark as possible. From here I took some tin foil, and then the edges that I'd cut I just rolled with that tin foil, just so they weren't such a straight edge. I mean, a lot of this isn't going to get seen, but I wanted to just be complete with all of it. So there's the back of my head, always interesting. But yeah, putting that there showed me that it was going to be pretty well blocked off and dark. But just to be sure of this, I put some black paint and painted the whole of the inside, and I painted the inside of the plug bit, as I'm calling it, as you can see me doing there, so that the inside would just be black. Now I wanted to have like a track on it, so you can see that I actually made some little plastic card rails as if it was a minecart thing, but then I decided to not use them, so that they didn't get used. All I did was take some lolly sticks which had been painted brown from a previous project already. I cut them down to 3 centimeters, which is about 1.25 inches, and then split them in half, and they would be used for the bottom of the track part. Then I came back to my fake wood and started building up the mine entrance itself. So I started by just getting some plank bits and just sticking them to the inside wall of the entrance. Then I started working on an upright, so I just took one and just glued it on, and then that was kind of my reference point for the rest of it. So then I put another one exactly opposite on the other side, and then it was just a case of building up the structure from there. So I put another one inside, and cut it down to the right height so that I could have a support beam going across So on top of the upright, but underneath the rock thing itself, as if there was something going on to make that rocky thing stay in place. I mean, as it is, with the vines that I put on the end, it didn't end up being seen, but it's always nice to be complete about these things anyway, in case you want to use these skills in a future project. So another couple of uprights going in as well, and then it was just a case of building it all up. So, you know, just plank by plank, just building up the sides. And once it had reached the same height as the uprights, see one of the great angles I was talking about there, that's my shoulder, putting some planks over the top like that. And I think it ended up looking pretty decent. From there, it was time to glue down the little track things that were cut out earlier. So just smothered the inside of it with PVA glue, and then just set about taking these 3 centimeter long half width lolly sticks that have already been painted and placing them down. See, I've managed to get the paintbrush exactly in the way. That's what I'm talking about. For the ones that are a bit further back, I took my long-nosed tweezery type things, and you know, like I said, these things are probably not going to get seen. There's the back of my head again, and but you know, it's nice to be complete about this sort of thing just in case, and that's what it was looking like. Glue was still wet at this point, so I took some of the grey flock, which is already on the tile itself, and sprinkled some at the top. This is me sprinkling some down, you can't see that, but there was a lot gathered at the front of it, and decided the best way to get it in was to simply just blow. So I just blew the flock to the back, and it pretty much went where I wanted it to go. So that was a bit of a result, to be honest. This was me putting the vines on, and another apology coming up on this one. I covered it in glue. You will see that the camera cuts off at this, the most inconvenient moment. So my elbow there, another great shot. Now, you see me showing you that plug thing there, the leftover bit, and that's because I cut little scatter rocks out of that. So all I did was cut some little random angles and then rolled them with the tin foil so they had the kind of rocky texture that we're going for, and then stuck them down with the glue gun. It was as simple as that. Obviously the plug had to go back in. I keep calling it a plug, it's the back corner. Just some glue, hot glue to put that back in, and then the gaps that were left over, I filled them up with hot glue and then shoved a bit of foam in there just to make sure it was as dark as possible, as you can see there. And we're approaching the finishing line with this. All that was left to do was to take some of the mossy mixture, stick another rock down, and spread the moss stuff all over to kind of grime it up a bit. And this is what it ended up looking like. Like I said, I couldn't be much more pleased with this, to be perfectly honest. It's